First, let's clarify if you think there's any chance that the U.S. can actually convince Russia to pull its support for Bashar al-Assad.
I think it'll be a very difficult task for the Americans to do that, given that Russia has been invested in Assad and Syria for some time in different guises. So it's quite a challenge. That said, I think that the Russians must know it's not in their interest to have a leader of Syria who has to resort to alleged use of chemical weapons on people in this way. That's no way to maintain control over a country which has really descended into quite a lot of chaos and is a real problem for the region. They both will want the problem to be solved. They'll have different views on what solving that problem will look like, and that's where I think there'll be a lot of opportunity to get somewhere for both. But the big question is can they agree on a common vision? That I don't know.
Thom, let me ask you, Tillerson is very familiar with Russia already, having run a U.S.-Russia oil venture. Do you think that's an advantage for him going into these talks?
I think it might be an advantage for him because he will have experience of working with Russian government, with Russian officials, and of course with others in the oil industry, but I think especially with officials in the government. So he will have some familiarity with his counterparts and a view to the official mindset about Russian interests in the Middle East, broadly speaking. And I think that will be an advantage over others who might not have an awareness of those issues and dealing with those officials. That said, I don't think he's particularly the best placed he could be because he does come from a certain corporate mindset and not necessarily geopolitical. But for these large oil companies, geopolitics is never that far away from their mindset. So I think he does come with some advantages, even if an imperfect mix.
Let me ask you this. Trump had declared a lot of admiration for Putin earlier on, only to end up saying just yesterday that he's making a mistake and supporting a monster in Syria. You wouldn't think Putin would actually appreciate that kind of criticism. Where do you think their relationship stands? Do they like each other at all now?
Well, I'm sure Putin didn't like being referred to as a monster by Donald Trump. I think that Trump very much has domestic politics on his mind first and foremost. When he talks about America first, he's not talking about what the Russians think of America or the Syrians think of America or the British think of America. He's thinking about people in his country. And he's having a lot of problems in his country. I mean, he won the election given the Electoral College vote system, but he lost the popular vote. He made a big vow that he was going to end the Obamacare healthcare system, and that didn't happen. He wound up not even being able to have a vote on it because he just didn't have the support for it. He's had a lot of allegations, very damaging allegations about Russian interference or Russian involvement in his win to become the president of the White House, in the White House. So I think that he's going to be looking for a distraction from all these problems at home. I think the opportunity to be seen to oppose the Russians very publicly on a world stage will play very well to his claim to be independent, that the Russians didn't have anything to do with his being president, and so he is going to make a very big mountain out of this, and play this for all it is going to be worth. He will want to be seen to be on one side with the Russians on the other, and if he can get the Russians to move their position somehow, even a small bit, he will claim a very significant victory as someone who was able to move the Russians on an issue that a lot of people thought was immovable. It's a very tall task for Trump to do, and I think that the Kremlin's talking about North Korea as part of the talks today will be part of their opening up some room for maneuver, that they might be able to negotiate something in Syria, but maybe Trump stands down on North Korea. This is all very speculative, obviously, at this point, but it shows that both sides realize that continuing on as normal in Syria seems to be just not something that is in anyone's interest at the moment, and both are looking for some way of saving face and seeing this as a win.
Okay. Thom, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks so much for joining us.